Moving on, next week's presentation. Dr. Marco Antonio Cortés Guardado y Doctora Cecilia Soraya Shibaya Soto. Communities of expats in the Ajic and Puerto Vallarta areas. So they did a survey, and the survey applied to expats in these areas during the years 2020 to 21. So they're going to be here next week sharing the results of those surveys. So Dr. Marco Antonio Cortés is Professor, Researcher and Director at the University of Guadalajara. And Dr. Cecilia Soraya Shibaya Soto is Professor, Researcher in the Department of Socio-Urban Studies at the University of Guadalajara. So you can come next week and find out more about yourself and your fellow gringos here. Now, this week, very interesting, bit of a little different presentation this week. We have LCS President Steve Balfour and the Executive Director Luis Pacheco. We're talking about LCS. We're going to be talking about the upcoming annual general meeting and future planning. So Steve is going to like to offer you some insights into the upcoming annual general meeting and solicit your thoughts. So there will be a question and answer later on. So start thinking about what you'd like to see at LCS. That being said, I'd like to introduce President Steve Balfour. In his final year, unless we storm the Capitol.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to Open Circle. This is such a wonderful program here at Open Circle. Just came to town. This is something I enjoyed very much. And Monday? How's that? Is that a little bit better? Better? Okay. For those that weren't around back then, at the beginning of COVID, the committee that was putting on Open Circle really were having a difficult time keeping it going because of COVID closing things down, and they had some staff that they were paying in order to manage Open Circle for them each week and what have you, and do the catering. So that brings us to the coffee thing. So we've always wanted to add back in the coffee part because it's a nice chance to socialize. A key to it, though, is that we don't have the staff to do that. So we're looking for a committee. I'm not going to ask you to raise hands now, but if you're interested, we're looking for like 2 people, maybe 3 people, so you can take turns and rotate. They can set up the coffee in the morning, make sure everything's there and ready to go, and pack it up afterwards. Because we just, as I say, don't have the staff to do it. So we'd appreciate help in order to keep the coffee going, at least a part of LCS, and then could go from there. Open Circle, sorry. I spoke at Open Circle, when was that? We're back the holiday time, and normally that's our slowest Open Circle. That's why I filled in that spot and talked a lot about myself because people said they didn't know my background. But one of the ideas that came up at that was a bike rack. Why don't we have bike racks here? So I'm happy to announce we now have bike racks as a result of that Open Circle right around the corner over here. So spots for 10 bikes right now, and if they get used, then we'll add more bike racks. But please bring your own lock. We, like any bike rack, don't have responsibility if that's damaged or what have you. But they are there, and Carlos put the force and come here. Yeah, okay. So that got accomplished, and one other thing I'd like to do before I start, my remarks will be very brief, and then Luis will come up very brief, but really today is about getting input from you. People talk about LCS as being a great place for newbies. Oh, surveyors there? Yeah. Hello. He's done. Maybe that's a little bit better. I lost where I was. The newbies. People think of LCS as being a newbies club, and you'll see as we mark our trends for how long people are here, the biggest fallout is in the year 2 to 3, where people don't renew their membership. They feel they got what they came here for. And we really want to get away from that. I don't think I could find probably anybody, certainly not more than 6 people in this community, that could name the over 100 programs that we offer here at LCS. And really we want it to become the organization for life. So while I say just a couple more comments, if you can think, what do you think would help us make this an organization people would want to join for life and continue with? We do have a whole bunch of members that have been here for 15 years, 20 years, and what have you, and that's great, but we want to increase that and keep people in the camp and keep things going. The upcoming, real quick, I want to give some recognition to a couple of people here in the audience, a couple of our board members. We have Greg Custer, I believe I'll be right here, Greg Custer. He's on our board of directors. And then we have over here Larry Barnhart. Now, Larry is a very dear, he's been the person, he's been my rock, he's the person whose shoulder I lean on for support and talk me through the difficult things and so on and so forth. And this is a man and his wife that I love very, very much. They're very dear to our organization, but they're especially dear to me, and I care for them a great big deal. Larry has been our vice president of the organization. He's recently had to step down from that position. And Yolanda Martinez, who many of you know from Yoli Salon or the Red Cross or other places.
Could you move the mic a little further from your mouth, please? Move the mic further from your mouth.
Yep, so you can hear it there? Okay, there we go, thank you. And so Yoli has moved into the position of the Vice President of the Board, and Larry's a Director at Large as of this moment, so we appreciate that a great deal and greatly value his support and all he's done. Larry is also the grandfather or the godfather of LCS 2.0, and which is a wonderful master plan for our future heading forward. And then he is the person that is responsible for starting the Mexican Advisory Council. So that's a very important council of the board, and Larry, people have talked about it for years, and Larry is the one that really made it happen. So I want to thank him for that. And then currently he's the chair of the campus committee, which is developing all kinds of plans for the future of LCS and helping us to set up priorities. His committee has done a total analysis of all the buildings that are on our campus to know the exact condition of all these buildings, what it would cost to repair them, upgrade them, get them more usable for us, as well as the infrastructure, the gardens, and the heritage garden, and everything else that's here. So I really want to give a huge applause, please, to Larry Barnhart for all of that. Thank you, Larry. Yes, I intentionally embarrassed you there, okay? It's part of being friends. As far as the AGM, our annual general meeting is required by our Constitution. It's required to be before the 3rd Thursday of March each year. So this year it's March 14th. We really would love you to come and join us at the March 14th annual general meeting. So we're going to sort of put some teasers out there today and hope you'll come. Now, Larry, what were you saying before? People would rather get poked in the eyes than go to an annual general meeting? I think that was just saying. And that's been true. Historically, the goal for an annual general meeting was just to get the minimum number of required people in order to, continue our business. And through Larry, the current board of members, Luis, and myself, we sort of see it as a different opportunity. We'd like to have as many people as possible there and really engage them in Lake Chapala Society. We think it's a great opportunity to really present all that's going on, because there's a lot. And as I say, most people don't know that we have over 100 programs here or what those programs are, so it's really important. So the annual general meeting, it starts at 10 o'clock. This year we're going to start at 9 o'clock. From 9 to 10, we're going to have coffee and snacks. Okay? We're going to start some presentations a little bit before the annual general meeting. We have one we're going to be doing on our new point-of-sale system, and also results from the survey that was recently done, which almost 600 people answered that survey. It's been a great guideline for Larry's committee, but for the whole board and the organization. So we'll talk about those things just before the 10 o'clock mark. At 10 o'clock, we call the meeting to order, and if we don't have 50% plus one of our members, we have to delay the meeting. So 50% plus one would be well over 1,000 people. Okay, so that we don't have. All right, we've never had that at one of our annual general meetings. But what the Constitution allows, if we don't have a quorum at 10 o'clock, we can look for an alternate quorum, which that would be the 50 people that we have to have in order to conduct business. So without 50 people, we cannot conduct business, and we don't continue on in essence, but with 50 people, we can do the elections of officers, and also the financial reports and all the other things that we need to do. But our goal is to have over 100 people there, and plus we're offering it on Zoom, as we have the past couple of years. So you can attend on Zoom and vote if you're a member. The Constitution requires you have to be a member to vote. Then we'll have here in person, which we really would love to have a great turnout here because we have lots of visuals that you'll be able to see better here in person. We'll have a big screen and monitor and so on and so forth. And then we'll be on the other side of the gazebo here, over at that stage. And then this year, we're going to have a guest seating area. So if you're not a member, that's okay. If you have friends that are not members that would love to come and just hear what's going on with this organization, come on over, sit in the guest section. You won't be able to vote according to the Constitution, but you will be able to attend. And we'll give a lot of updates. So we'll be speaking about the survey that was recently done, what the results are from that survey. We'll also be talking about a new point of sale system that will make the front office much more user-friendly. It'll cut down on a whole bunch of the traffic. Right now, all of our processes are on paper and notebooks. There's some volunteers here that have been in the office, I know, worked in the office, I know. And it's such a manual process, and it's like doing everything 6 times. It makes no sense at all. So this new system will greatly change the dynamics of that, be much more user-friendly, and if you've ever used Amazon or used an online service to buy a plane ticket or any of those, Ticketmaster or any of those things, you're going to be familiar with the process. It's going to be very simple. We will not be eliminating the in-person system in the office. If you don't like computers, you just don't even want to touch a computer, that's fine. Come on in, we'll still take care of you there, but it'll be a much more efficient process. So we'll be covering the survey, the IT, then we'll also be covering the agenda items for the annual general meeting. And the agenda for the AGM is that call to order at 10 o'clock, establishment of quorum, there won't be a quorum, we'll reconvene at 10:30, but we'll use that half hour from 10 to 10:30 to do the presentations about the 5 priorities of LCS and what we're doing with them. So that will be a very valuable half hour to be here. And so we're serving coffee and snacks in the beginning. We're going to have some sandwiches and refreshments at the end of the meeting as well. So come and make a morning of it. We'll move to the reading of the order of the day, adoption of agenda, receipt of minutes, the President's report, ratification of the 2022 financial report, receipt of the budget for this year, and the 2022 external audit report, and ratification of membership categories and dues, ratification of reserve funds, and then the election of the officers. This year we have the vice president, the treasurer, and I think it's 4 at-large positions that will be voted on at this year's annual general meeting. Then a granting of the power of attorney, which is a legal process we just have to do, and then we'll wrap it up with another, as we have the past couple of years, with another tremendous presentation with Larry and his team talking about what are the new steps that have been being done, especially with campus, tied directly to the LCS 2.0. So that will be coming up. And just as my last point, a reminder here of what our 5 priorities that were set at last year's annual general meeting are. So number 1, and a real key one to me, is customer service. On our surveys, we saw a lot of people gave customer service good or better rate. But there was a chunk of people who gave very poor customer service ratings here. And we're aware of a lot of those issues. We're going to address those issues now. So there's a new established committee of the board, the Customer Service Committee. It's an ongoing permanent committee of the board to stay on top of that and make sure that we really become customer service centric. And that's our goal. It's a process. We're dealing with people that are, they're set. It's not the Mexican culture, but the LCS culture that's been here for many, many years. And we need to address that and work with people, offer more trainings, and make it user-friendly for a lot of role-playing will be part of the training, so on and so forth. So this committee is very close to rolling out that training system. That's coming up very soon. Another priority was the upgraded technology. The computers we have will not operate on anything over Windows 7. Microsoft does not support Windows 7, okay? We're always saying, the IT team is always saying we're within 15 minutes of a total collapse technology-wise, because our system just can't be backed up. The software that we use, Library Vision, was not designed to do what we do with it, okay? And so that's been a real problem. And they won't even support us anymore as a software company. Remember the old days you get software, you'd get a manual with it about this thick, right? Now what do? It's an app, you don't get any manual, and within 15, 20 minutes, you know how to use it, okay? So we're gonna be more in that direction, definitely cloud-based. You can see all these cables running everywhere around this campus. Some of them fall down as squirrels, you know, chew away some of the leaves or what have you. But so there's going to be a big upgrade in technology over this coming year. It'll be a couple of years process. First is the point of sale system. Then the other of the top 5 priorities was the community collaborations. This is one of my biggest areas. I never wanted to be the executive director or the president of an organization that was a rich gringos club. It's not who I am. It's not what I do. But I really have always believed in collaboration. I've been involved with the Mexican community since 1978 and doing a whole bunch of things. And those that were here in December heard me talk more on that. But I really love building collaborations. We are doing more with the Mexican community in collaboration now than we ever have before. Substantially more. Substantially more. And I dream of the day where this open circle presentation has a screen in the back here that does translation. So it's now in English and Spanish, and we can bring in various speakers. So community collaborations is really key and important. We'll be sharing many of the different things we do in that area in this upcoming Conexiones magazine. The March issue will be dedicated to the annual general meeting, and we'll talk quite a bit about that. Then the other key area is community visibility. The other Greg on our board handles community visibility for us at this moment. And people just don't know what LCS does. There's still people who don't even know LCS is here. So visibility is a key priority of ours. Then the 5th priority is taking care of what we've got. There's been multiple boards of directors in the past. And that's one of the challenges with board of directors. They rotate, they change with time, and then people start changing things. But we've gone through at least 2 architectural plans for how to rebuild LCS. Most of them included tearing buildings down and building buildings. You know, we've never seen, some of us that are really wedded, and the survey shows, to the idea of really the Mexican image in culture and the look here. You know, we were bothered by those contemporary plans that we've seen in the past. So Larry has really taken charge with the campus committee of taking care of what we've got. So analyzing exactly the condition, what it's going to cost to fix it up, how best to fix it up, how best to use it. Keep in mind, all of these were houses, the single-family homes. The restrooms were designed for single-family use, and we have 1,000 people a week using them. We have almost 2,000 people coming on the campus. And so you can imagine the challenges we're having with restrooms. They absolutely need to be redone, and very, very soon. You've seen the plaza redone here, major liability. We're working on the path going up toward the blue patio now, and some other things are in the works. So please come to the annual general meeting, hear a lot more of what we've got going on, but also see some visual slides and demonstrations and banners and so on and so forth that we'll have that really demonstrate it. So I'm going to shut up quick. I'm going to give the microphone to Luis, and then from there we really want to focus on your thoughts, your ideas, what we should be talking about at the annual general meeting, but also how can we make this a better LCS? No matter how great it is, everything can be better. How can we enhance it to serve the entire community? So we're looking for your feedback on that. So,
Yes.
He gave me the cheap mic, and he's getting the good one. Look at this, huh?
I'm going old school.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you. Let's hit this word. Does this is better? Worse? Should we go back to the old ones? Right, fine. Okay. Thank you very much for being here today. And I feel honored to be invited to talk at Open Circle, as I've been very honored for the past 2 years to be appointed as the LCS Executive Director. For those who don't know me, I am Luis Pacheco. I'm supposed to be the Executive Director at LCS. And I would like to just give you a little heads up on who I am and why I'm here. Because when Steve told me that we want to share what we were doing at the AGM, I thought that the most important part is understanding how I see the AGM. One of the biggest, sorry because I steal sometimes When I'm thinking in Spanish and translating to English, so I get a little slower. But I could do it around. I can speak in Spanish and see how you guys do with it. ¿A poco no les encantaría? So, for me, it has been a privilege to have the honor to serve the Ajijic and Riviera de Chapala community by collaborating at LCS. That's how I feel I'm here. You know? Most of my life I've worked on the nonprofit sector. Since I was 18, I didn't left home at 18 because I still got my father to pay for the university and then drop out in the last semester. We still argue about that one. But I dropped out of university at that point. I was studying chemical engineering and went straight to Chiapas. It was after the rise of the indigenous movement around the 90s. So I went and joined some Peace Corps groups and spent a couple of years working in Chiapas. Then my little sister followed me, and she did commit because I was there for short times and go back and forth, but she went up and there and spent 2 years at the Peace Corps, living directly at the communities. So most of my life I've devoted to nonprofit and to the third sector work. You know, I started working with indigenous communities, a lot of years working with Mayan communities in Chiapas, and then in the north part of the country with Tarahumaras. And then life has taken me up and down the country on different opportunities that I found. I work with what we call Chavos Banda, which is street gangs, bands it is called Chalco, which is one of the biggest, we call it the biggest dorm city in the world. It's one of the neighborhoods that's next to Mexico City. It's on the way out to Puebla. All the dumpsters that you see and all the houses that you see there, that's called Chalco. There are 2-3 places there, which is Iztapalapa, Valle Chalco, y Chalco, you know, and approximately 15 million people move around those places. I mean, where I live, everyone went into the city to work. That means almost 3.5 million moved into the city at 5 o'clock, and then they return and to try to make a living around 7 o'clock. So you can imagine it is one of the most violent environments I've ever lived in, and it was very chaotic, but also one of the most teaching experiences I've ever had. And after that, I devoted like 8 or 9 years of my life to human rights defense process, especially related with HIV things. So, as you can see, I've been up and down. Then I got married, and I had to get a decent job, so I went to university, and I make more messes than when I was out. So it was fun. My studies have been always related, well, first I studied chemical engineering, and then I studied philosophy and sociology and theology because I was a Jesuit for 10 years. I also dropped that one out, so as you can see, I like to move on things. And my master's degree and my PhD are on philosophy. Of course, I didn't finish my PhD. But that one is because it was the crisis and I lost the scholarship, so I had to go back to work. So I think I've been blessed because I don't think I have worked one single day of my life. Because I've always been doing whatever I want. I mean, I do a lot, and I do work a lot, but I don't think I have felt that I have to go to work every single day because I'm just passionate of what I do. And when I got invited here to LCS, it was great because we were still in the pandemic. I was out of the university at that point. You know how deans are. They don't like to be told what they're doing wrong. So we agreed that we didn't agree and that he was the owner of the university, so it was better for me to leave. So I was invited to LCS, and what I discovered is one of the biggest opportunities of making something very different of what I've done before in my life. Because of what? Because what I find here is exactly how we start talking and we start trying to initiate this conversation. Si yo lo hiciera en español, la mayoría de ustedes no podrían seguir la conversación que estamos teniendo. So what I'm saying, if I did it in Spanish, most of you wouldn't be able to follow up with communication. Yesterday I was at a different meeting, and if I was doing it in English, probably 95% of the people that were there wouldn't be able to follow up. And as we go along, I have been able to identify at least 23 different languages that are speaking over Lakeside, that are spoken over Lakeside. So this is a very special place because it's a community of communities. You cannot just say the Mexican community or the expat community, because even those communities will be configured of many different things. It's not the same, the Mexican community that was born and raised here, that the ones that only comes for weekends, and they own houses on the frags, and they just enjoy the weekends, or people like myself that have ended up migrating to these communities, find a job and to make a living. You know? And it's the same with the expats. It will be unfair to say that you guys look all alike. Yeah? You come from very different stories, from very different places, and looking for very diverse things. So the possibility of really constructing an intercultural space in Ajijic, I think LCS is the place that could be used as a reference for doing that. Because you have been doing it for the past 6 to 7 years. And I think we can improve the way that we do that. Which is our biggest challenge? Well, as Steve addressed it, and meanwhile, as I see it, my biggest challenge is to make everyone understand that this needs to be a place in which you approach because you want to join to create things, to create a new life. Of course, you get a lot of benefits, you know? Even some free coffee and free Wi-Fi and some amazing classes that others are willing to teach you. But I think that we really need to reinforce the idea that when you join a nonprofit, when you join something like LCS, you're joining because you live in a cause, because you want to make a difference, because you want something to happen. So this is not a country club, which I buy membership and expect to get a lot of things, because if we were expecting that, we will be charging $8,000 and not 800 pesos for a week, for a month, for a yearly. Yeah. So what I'm doing when I pay my membership is I want to give my confidence, I want to give a statement that I'm here because I want to make a better life for all of us at Lakeside. And that's very difficult because all these different groups will have their own cultural, personal agendas. They will understand life differently. But I think that every single one of those expressions, those cultural expressions, those stories, have something to teach to each other. So our biggest challenge is how are we going to make that all the community is willing to open their hearts and their minds to start approaching the differences and embracing them and understanding that there is where the possibility of creating new life resides. And that's what has been my experience on LCS, and that's why I feel blessed for the past 2 years. Now I have a completely different group of friends that I did 2 years ago. No? And I talk about pretty much different topics than what I did 2 years ago. Because my life is changed by the blessed presence of different groups and different communities that I address on everyday terms. So, for me, the AGM should be the celebration and the acknowledgement of what we can do and what we can continue doing for Lakeside. The problem is, since we always create, as human beings, create institutions and get very legal about it, we can do all this sociology, I love that. We can have a coffee about that all the day. But we tend to forget the reason why we're here. So sometimes the AGM just becomes about the formal expression of getting the board re-elected. Again, what we're trying to do, and what Steve has been working very hard, and putting a lot of pressure on me so we can get it done, is to really recreate that into a place in which we are gathered to celebrate life, to reflect what kind of life we want, and what kind of projects can we create to create that experience of life. So it's not arguing about if we need or we don't need more money. My experience of life, my professional experience of life, I've been able to manage the financial crisis very easily. I don't worry about the money, because there never is. I cannot work for something I don't have. So that's how we are managing LCS. Don't worry about the money. We don't have any. So we'll just have to get everything that we need to do whatever we want. It's as easy as that. You know? But it's as complex as that. Yeah. So what I'm inviting you to is to dream with us what kind of life you're looking for at Lakeside. So you can come and join and help us create those projects. Because I frequently, as executive director here every day, LCS should do this, LCS should do that, LCS is not doing this, LCS is not being political enough, or it's being too political, or not religious enough, but LCS do not exist. I'm sorry to tell you, LCS doesn't exist. What exists is this group of volunteers, of members, of devoted human beings doing things. That is LCS. There's no other LCS than the LCS that you guys, with your projects, with your hands, with your finance, with your energy, with your love, create. I've never seen Mr. LCS walking down the street. I've tried. I've looked for him because I have a lot of complaints for him. But he's not there. But what I see is committed people that give hours of his life, of their time, part of their financial resources, but most of all, a lot of love, a lot of energy, and a lot of dreams to make things happen. We have at LCS over 105 activities that are carried on every week. And 85% are free. That means that someone has decided to take their talents and use it to teach, or to work, or to do something for the community. We have great yoga classes, great mindfulness classes, great Tai Chi classes, great chess classes, Scrabble, all those kinds of things. But they're being done not by LCS. They're being done at LCS by the community that has stated that they want to be part of a program and a project that's called LCS. And I think that's what the AGM is trying to do, to remind us that there is nothing out there that's called LCS if it's not what we are willing to do and commit to do through this and any other great institution. There are more than 100 non-profit organizations around Lakeside. That means there are more than 100 of different dreams that are being trying to make or give a better quality of life around Lakeside. So LCS at that point is not unique. But it is unique because I think it's one that now it's putting the finger on one of the most important things, is how do we embrace the different communities? How do we embrace diversity? And it's, I think, what Steve was trying to put on words, that it would be lovely that at some point we could just all sit on Sundays and reflect an open circle about our lives and what we want to do with them and how we can handle them. And everyone could listen to it on their own terms, on their own language. That's the kind of things I'm trying to dream. How can we make a community in which everyone can understand what the other one is living and also find a way that they want to live? And that, when we get it into little concrete projects, we have many big challenges. That's why, and that's the reason why we want to update IT. It's not just to look cool because now we can do it on our phone and do it on the cloud. Because we think that IT could be a resource that we can exploit to reach out better to all the different communities. And that's the idea of updating IT. Although because it's almost dead. Well, at the end of the day, I think our IT is dead, but no one has really had the courage to tell us like that. But it is. It's gone. You can see my mics, they're struggling. We cannot even have a decent mic to have a decent conference. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to be challenged with every single day. We are trying to use household facilities as a commercial facility. There is nowhere bathrooms won't collapse. I mean, who uses more than 10 times bathroom a day at their house? It could be a day if the mayonnaise wasn't in good shape, but normally that's it. Now we're having, what, 1,000 flushes a week. there's no way they will hold on. They were not themed and they were not designed for that. But I think that's a perfect example of the same things that's happening around Lakeside. Many of the things were not designed and they were not conceived to hold and to embrace difference. And now we need to find a way to construct these other ways so we can embrace those differences and everyone can feel at home. So everyone can make a living at Lakeside. And what I ambitious the most is that we address the big community issues. Right now I'm strolling. We needed to get the boat on float. After COVID, as Steve has many times stated, we were 15 days away from closing. It was so much fun. I like to tell this story. I think I do it better in Spanish, but I'll try to do it in English. When I first was invited to be executive director, I was really excited. I talked to my wife and I talked to my friends, and because I felt like, you know, Mexicans, we like football. So, soccer, but it's football. Okay, we'll have that discussion in some open circle, but okay. So we love soccer. So everything, all the metaphors tend to go sometimes into soccer metaphors. So I felt like I was invited to be ahead of a first division football club. So I came with all my plans because we were going to be champions. So when I got here, what I saw is that first we needed not to go to second division before we think of the championship. We were really back on many stuff and we were really hurting on money. You know, I remember Steve said, don't worry, you only have money for operations for 1 month. Welcome to your new job. You know? And since then, a lot of people have made efforts to try to get us away from that situation. Right? There are thousands of hours of volunteer work behind us for the past year. You guys really don't imagine how many hours it takes to put up a concert, because it's not only showing up. There are months and months of work behind. Every time we open doors, we need people taking care of those doors, taking care of that office, taking care of that library. There are thousands of hours that people generously give us. And if we cannot see that and celebrate it on an AGM, we're missing the point. So that's why I think it's important to have these kinds of AGMs, not because the Constitution tells us to once a year, so everyone, oh yeah, it's over, let's go move to the next thing. We really need to be changing that so you guys understand what we're trying to do, so you can join us and show us the way that we should continue going. Because as I told you, there's no LCS, there's no you, if there's no us. That's what LCS is about. So we have big challenges on IT. We have big challenges of taking care of what we want. We want these gardens to be lovely and to be great. And if we want our pathways not to be cracking around and probably missing a couple of members one day by disappearing into the ground. We really need to invest. We really need to think. We really need to be creative. But we also deserve the time to devote time to reflect on what kind of living we want to construct. I think it's worth it. And I think projects like Open Circle, that's why they are so valuable and so important. Because there should be the spaces in which we can reflect and share what we think of life, what we think of our projects, what are our fears, what are our dreams, what have we been up to. I love to come to Open Circle, for example, and discover what people are up to. You know, it's like, how can it be so interesting that Cecilia spent 2 years making a survey to try to understand what are the migration fluctuation of expats at Lakeside? At least for me, it deserves all the respect to try to understand why it was so passionate about it. Or why it's so passionate. One of the things I've enjoyed my life, the guy that comes and do the Benjamin Franklin, to be honest, as Mexican, the first time said, oh, what that's going to be. And I loved it, because I can understand all the things that it means to him to put all that energy to try to share that with others. And that's what I get. What can be those important things for you guys that are worth putting all your energy into so we can move forward and create different ways of living at ourselves? Steve's looking at me like, I said 5 minutes and you got 10. That's a problem with Mexicans. We are an oral culture. We can talk for hours. At the same time, without understanding each other, and we still be So thank you very much, and that's what we want to do. And that's what we wanted to do with this open circle, we want to sit here and now give you the microphone so you can just share what's in your heart. What are those things that we should be trying to construct and do as projects ongoing for LCS? But remember, no one else is going to do them for you. That's the trick part.
So now we'd love your questions, your comments, your thoughts. If anybody would like to speak up, please raise your hand. Deanna has a microphone here.
Hi.
There you go.
So I would like to know more about the collaboration between LCS and Lakeside Little Theater.
Yeah, I can speak on that one. Brian, who's the new president of Lakeside Little Theater, he and I met early on. He was elected like a year ago to the presidency. Discussed what can we be doing more together. And like all charities, they need funding. They need money. So I put on 2 concerts over there to help raise money for them. So we did My Way with Nacho, and then Enrique Allende did a concert there for us, which completely sold out with 2 performances. And we've been working on some other, there was another one scheduled, but that last minute didn't fit in their agenda, so we moved it over here. But we're helping them with fundraising. We've talked about working together in collaboration of trying to come up with marketing plans where maybe we jointly buy full-page ad in Guadalajara Reporter, and any organizations doing a ticketed item, we can share the market, get more reach for all of us. We've also talked about sharing IT tech, sharing some of the IT tech
services. Here in town, we have a real hard time finding tech people who know how to operate sound or how to operate lighting, and so we're talking about sharing there. We're talking about possibly sharing a webmaster because both of us have that need. So there's a lot of sharing of collaboration there. And I do look at collaboration as all groups, all organizations. It's not just the expat community or just the Mexican community. It's many different communities that are here. And so there's lots of things we're doing there.
I think I want to address something that's probably in all of our minds living here, and that is the extraordinary growth that's happening here throughout the Ribera. And what role is LCS going to play in having a seat at the table and being part of exploring solutions, strategies, and projects that can address the strains that are on this community that are probably only going to continue?
Well, one of the things that we are trying to do at LCS, the first, and this is a hard statement to do, but first of all, we cannot be everything to everyone. That means, because as I started trying to make a point, is Mr. LCS doesn't exist. I would love to send him to all the meetings that I have to go to representing LCS. So what we're trying to do is trying to get people or strategic people involved on the processes of discussion that they could be the best actors. Let's do an example. If maybe I understand very well the nonprofit and the educational sector, but I really don't have any experience in tourism. So it wouldn't make any sense that I use a chair to try to get. So what we're trying to do is identify which are those medular spaces in which someone could be there, putting the voice of the different communities to be represented as. Like for example, I'll try to put an example on this. Is one of the efforts that LCS now is doing is how do we get more of the different communities that represent, people that represent different ideas or agendas into our activities, into our board. We got the Mexican board, the Mexican Advisory Council right now. We're getting some Mexicans into the board. I'm pushing to get some Mexicans in the board. No, that's not true. I didn't do it. But the idea is that, so how can we make ourselves present in the kinds of things that we need to discuss? Also that it's more than an art, than a science, you know, because sometimes you also don't want to be in spaces that not necessarily will address the problem, but if you are there, you will legitimate them. You know? I'm being very careful, for example, in Mexican politics, everything is about that. You know how Mexican politics work. For everything we don't know how to solve or we don't want to solve as a government, we just create committees. Yeah? You've been here, I don't have to explain you that now. So if we have the water pollution problem, oh, we'll create a special committee. And that's just like killing the subject. So at some point we also have to know if it's strategic to be there or we're just legitimizing a process that won't happen. Yeah? So what we're trying to find out is on which spaces we should be present because we can contribute. And there are many things that all the people around do much better than us. Yeah? And our place on that is just sustain them. It's just, for example, the great activity they did on sustainability on the Cristiandad. Well, they asked for our help, and some of our volunteers stepped up and went and helped with that activity. But we are not the experts on that. They are. So our part on that is just trying, what I'm saying, to make everyone get their way and get going. Yeah. Are we going to have a sustainability program at LCS? Well, at this point, no, because there are other people doing it great. But thanks to them, now we are reflecting that we need to separate our garbage, that we need to start changing many of the ways that we use water. I mean, we'll learn from them, and we'll get our campus in a more sustainable position. But that's what we are trying to do with some of those things.
Deanna, there's another question up here. White shirt. Yep.
Pardon me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I find it difficult. I'm a snowbird, coming here 5 years, joined immediately. Nobody was at the gate, it felt friendly. I came to TED Talks, it was interesting, different political views. I don't know, the people at the gate, I've asked Mr. Balfour to take down the barbed wire. I don't think that helps any open thing that we're trying to create, so you haven't taken it down. There don't seem to be TED Talks. I just sat here reading the mission statement. Are we involved in recycling? The entry fee is so small, so silly, so like goofy. It should be at least $100 US, at least something. But there's a reason why you give $100 or $500, because we're helping with recycling, because we're getting nonsense off the streets, or because we're doing, I hear a lot of platitudes. I love that word, sustainability. But I mean, I don't know, a lot of my friends who joined the same time, they're no longer members. They don't have a reason. They can't. They'd like there to be a Mr. LCS. They'd like to, or Mrs. LCS. They'd like to be able to say, that's what we do. But they don't know what we do. Yep. So it's a lot of stuff.
And a lot will be presented at the annual general meeting to talk about some of the things. And there was a big controversy about the gate check-in things, and really it was completely misunderstood. That was never, ever, ever intended to exclude anybody at all from our campus, ever. And there was a need for more training with the volunteers up there greeting people and things like that, but you'll remember that started in a time of COVID where the government was requiring that every business check people in as far as checking temperature, offering gel, requiring masks to be worn and things of that nature. So this was that effort there. It got a little bit out of hand and out of control with people not knowing how to do it. I always looked at as those the greeters. And I think that Phil, you can stay seated for this, but if I use Phil as an example here, that what should have been happening there is the docents, as this gentleman walked, hey, welcome to Lake Chapala Society. Is there anything I can help you with today? You know, you just want to look, great, please enjoy our gardens. And then, now, we do ask, on a volunteer basis, you don't have to provide this thing, but if you're a member, just give us your member number, and you don't need to give us anything else. If you're not a member, would you leave us your name, first name's fine, and any type of contact information. The intent there had one intent. One is it was voluntary. Two, the intent was that if we had a breakout of COVID on the campus on a given day, we would be able to send an email to everybody that came to campus that day, let them know there was a breakout, and encourage them to go get tested. not disclosing who had COVID that was here, so on and so forth. So it was the best intent idea. It was a little bit of, kind of like a contact tracing, I guess, but all strictly voluntary, all strictly confidential. We weren't misusing that information, we weren't soliciting people, and so that was the intent. And now it's been walked. Then there were some other issues that came up in the community that caused it to linger on a little bit longer. But now that's mostly been broken down and turned into a sort of a greeting committee into LCS. And again, that's part of our customer service training will come up to really train those people. But it was intended to be much more friendly, much encouraging, helping you. You go into a pottery class, you've never been here before, yeah, well, let's give you directions. We can give you directions, and we have one of the other docents walk you back there. That's simple. So really, it was a greeting committee once we got into the whole COVID period. I personally, when COVID first came on, having been in events all my life and production and planning things and so on and so forth, I wanted to plan for what I thought could have been the worst case scenario. And I think that's a good thing to plan for. So I was planning to turn this into a triage unit. I imagined the possibility that every hospital in town could have been overwhelmed with members of that Mexican community, which should have the first rights to those facilities. I wanted to be prepared here. I started outlining who are nurses in town, who have medical background, how many beds could we set up in the salad, how many beds could we set up in the back, where could we get infusion kits, and so on and so forth. So I have all those plans that I worked on for months to be ready if the worst case scenario happens. I want to take care of our people, okay? Not to them people and us people, but I wanted them to get first priority in the hospital, and I wanted us to take care of ourselves here. So that was my objective with what in the beginning of COVID. And things have just played out. Remember 5 días in casa? Well, how many días was it really? We saw things change quite a bit. We were opening and closing and everything. So we were prepared for the worst case scenario. Fortunately, didn't have to go there, but if it ever comes again, we're ready. So.
I think that you mentioned something that's very important. One of our biggest challenges also is visibility. Like I said, we run over 120 programs. Probably you can go out on the street and people will normally not be able to say more than 5. We currently we are helping 38 kids with student aid, which they would be attending college if it wasn't for LCS. The other week we got 65 kids now in the art class, and that has been going on for many, many, many years. And some of the most outstanding artists of the village were helped either by Neil James at some point or then by LCS. So we really have a challenge to try to show what we're doing and how we are engaging the community on everyday terms. We got two of the biggest state chess tournaments for Mexican kids last year. If you'd have come on Sunday, well, you would have hated it because we were more than 200 kids playing chess and more than 500 families running around camps. But I think that's great, and that's what we want. And I think we haven't been able to really make visible what we're doing because people are just seeing one little part or the part they're interested in. They think we're only the library. Well, we have one of the most important libraries in Latin America, in the English version. But we also have a Mexican, Spanish-talking library, which is very important for the community because many of the things that happened there were very important. Over the past year, we had about 15 different conferences for Mexican youth, from finance to peace, culture, violence, drugs, sexuality, safe sex, and many other things that they totally go on, but I don't think we're being able to communicate that rich part of what people are doing because it's not something I'm doing. All of them are run by volunteers. I only have 4 staff, so 4 major staff members. And for more than we try, we can only work as 24 hours a day. Trust me, I've tried to do more, but sometimes I can't. Cloning actually is not covered by medical insurance, so I can go through that one. But I do think, and the other part is, and on this I gotta be straightforward. When we say there are many different communities, there's also there are many contexts on how and why things happen. So, for example, what one community feel like an intrusion, I will use the same example. Many Americans complain to me saying, by putting people at the doors, you're sending away the Mexican community. You don't know what you're doing. I said, well, I've been a Mexican more time, so I probably have an idea of that. But also, we Mexicans live in a very violent country, and many of us we're not even fortunate enough not to know those violent times. So we are used to some kind of procedures that we know that they are there for our security. I'm used to going into any building in Mexico and having to show an ID to go in. Mexicans will not be afraid of those kinds of issues. We took them out because we understand that we're not addressing the community the best way. Because we put volunteers there that have never made that kind of thing, so they don't know how to behave. So now we have to put a lot of training on our volunteers. But what I'm trying to prove is a point that's also there are contexts of things that happen that many of the people don't know. You don't realize how many things happen in campus at night, for example. When we talk about the barbed wire, I would love to take it out, but also I need to secure the perimeter of this. And we live in a very violent country that sometimes, thank God, actually sometimes only, have security issues. So yes, at night they have called me to try to take people out of campus because they are drinking or doing all the stuff at campus because they can easily jump our walls. And that will always put us in a position, that's why I said, in which we need to reflect, how are we can address those problems? Probably we don't have still the best answers, but what we are putting to try the emphasis is we really need to keep reflecting because things change. And every decision that we take will have different implications. Sometimes we will do it right, sometimes we will just keep on improving it because we're not doing it the best way we can. I think that helps.
Not very many people know about the Wilk Center and the services that the Wilk Center provides. If you could talk a little bit about that, I think that would be very beneficial.
Well, to be honest, one of the reasons I accepted the job is because I saw what the Wilk Center could do for us. I think it's a part that challenged me the most and I'm more excited about. For anyone who knows, we do have a larger campus than this. We have another piece of campus that's set on Galeana 6, which is called, the Mexicans call it La Biblioteca Pública, and the Americans call it the Wilk Center. And the Canadians still don't have the site. So, yes, and Australians, Americans, Australians, Germans, Italians, they still haven't wondered there is. So, I think that part, since it was the Mexican, the Spanish, not the Mexican, the Spanish library, the Spanish Hollywood Library, many of the programs that address the Mexican community are held there. We're still trying to rebuild that project because, to be honest, it was closed for 3 years because of COVID, completely closed. But I think it's one of the key parts to addressing the Mexican community. Why? Because kids and youth love it. And it's a kind of space they can appropriate and start constructing their own programs. Now it's starting to happen. Every day, Diana has more young kids, addressing them from, we have a very strict collaboration now with the tech Mexicans. We got here, we have been trying to reach out to the tech, to the CONALEP. Now we have even signed an agreement with the UDG. So we have 6 young architects that are coming on Sundays to work their practice here to help us, to help all the Larry community, these 30 people working on the community, because that's the kind of things people don't see. There are 30 people reflecting on what we're going to do with our sewers, electricity, buildings, gardens, water. And we got 6 young kids involved there that are the ones that are helping us do the architect things that probably now we cannot do. But like that, we are starting to put seeds on many different programs. And Wilk Center, I think, is going to be strategic to do that because it's a place that we can really use so the Spanish community can feel they have there and here a lot of different activities that they can address. One of the biggest things that Steve has emphasized and asked me to accomplish is that we don't see this as LCS main campus and the Wilk Center. No, it's just LCS. And some things will happen there and some things will happen here, but it's one same campus. And we do have a lot of activities happening there. Like these conferences that I started, Fred is working very hard to try to start reconstructing the audiences to attend these kinds of conferences, these kinds of classes. On Saturdays, we have 38 kids being taught English. They come from the tech. We make an agreement with that. The tech is the local school, so the government desired to ask them to have English enabled, so they have to prove their English efficiency enabled to get the title, but they're not giving them classes. because there's no budget. So there's no classes, but they do need to prove their efficiency. So now Alfredo and all the volunteers from ESL are working real hard to try to teach these kids English, so at least they can finish up their college studies and things like that. But it takes hands. Some say, why don't you have 150 kids? Because I haven't found enough volunteers that are willing to come and do it. Because as much as I would love to teach them, I can't have that much time. As much as Alfredo puts hours in it, or Steve puts hours. I think Steve puts like, what, 22 hours a day for LCS? And yeah, because I get messages at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, have you thought of this? I say, oh, God. So, yeah.
This is my 11th winter here and my 3rd year permanente. And my first stop was Open Circle. Somebody said, go there. And I've watched what happens at LCS expand in those 11 years, from social offerings, educational offerings, entertainment offerings, tremendously. The physical improvement here, and it's really easy to not see what's been done and look at what isn't done. But I think being a resident, being a minority in a place that we live, is important for us to realize that, well, I'm learning to adapt still after all these years to what living in a Mexican pueblo involves. This is different. And I stopped complaining about the dog poop, but I pick up mine. So there's so many things, and you're a gift to us. And everything you've said is that we need to participate in this fully, and I thank you for that reminder. Because without our participation, the small, amazing staff that runs LCS is fierce. And you look really tired today, Luis, and I think we need to give you more help. So I'm going to volunteer to do more than I'm doing. And I'll come to the board meeting and see what I can do. And I remember when Open Circle was standing room only. Something here has shifted, and I'm not sure what it is, but I'd like to participate in talking about that.
We would love that.
Okay.
Just to pick up a little bit on what Gloria remarked on too, and the Wilkes Center, which has kind of been on the back of my mind a little bit. Maybe I'm missing it in the Connections magazine, but should there be, a gentleman said here about what goes on in the Wilkes Center, and I said, that's good. What's that building being used for? Could maybe just a half a page, or just, not 2 pages, but just 1 page about update on what's going on at the Wilkes Center this month, or what's planned, I think would be just good information for us to have. And you get credit for it too, which would be nice, because there's a lot of hard work there.
Yeah. Make sure you pick up the March copy of Connecciones magazine, and that could be like our annual general meeting issue. There's a page in there on the Wilkes Center, and then we do articles and they're from the Wilkes Center. And somebody once in one of the discussion groups said to me, well, Steve, why aren't more things on campus bilingual? Okay? And Connecciones magazine, all the articles are English and Spanish. So one of the cases they used in that discussion group was, like the Connections magazine, I guess, okay, here's a copy of the magazine, tell me which article is in English only that should be in Spanish, and they're all in Spanish. And what a lot of people find with Connecciones magazine is the people that are trying to learn more Spanish or study or take class, stuff like that, is read the article, make every best effort you can to read the article in Spanish first and then in English. And people found that as a great learning tool as well. So I think you'll be seeing more in that area. Sure. Thank you. Other questions? All the way in the back? Yeah.
This isn't a question, it's an observation. Before COVID, I came to every Open Circle every single week. And we come in, we get our little sandwiches and our coffee, we have a little conversation at the back with people that we were doing that, sit down, and the conversation, I met so many new people here before COVID hit. Now we don't have, now we have coffee, which is great, but that little extra, I think made everybody sort of feel more comfortable and enjoy coming here.
Yeah, Open Circle, as we've both identified, this has been one of our favorite programs with the organization. When I came here 6 years ago, I instantly started coming to Open Circle, and I agree with you there. So I think right now there's a combination of many things that are keeping the numbers down. I don't think it's as simple as coffee and sandwiches, although that is definitely a part of it. But there's still some people that are nervous about going out in public with COVID and things like that. So there's many things. But our key, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking for a volunteer committee to take on the Open Circle refreshments, if you will.
So start out with, we'll keep the coffee going, start out with that, but then what else does the committee decide they want to add in, to have in there? Because I think the social hour, and Larry's commented on this several times, the social hour is an important part of the elements. You know, right now we start at 10:30, so people show up at 10:25, because they've been conditioned to do that, because there wasn't a reason to come sooner. And I think, I've loved Open Circle. I do think it's a big, for people new in town, especially, but for everybody, to come and chance to network and meet people. You don't have to be a member of LCS to come to Open Circle. So, yeah, we'd love to get it. So any people that would like to put together a committee, I'm thinking like 2 or 3 people, probably 3 people. That way, if one's out 1 week, they could cover and rotate and do stuff like that. So that'd be great. Thank you. Other questions? The Intercam ATM, all right, this is our favorite topic. So Intercam is one of our key sponsors for the organization here. We're very thankful, very appreciative of them. There's much talk about, oh, it's always broken and always not working. That's not completely factual. There's a lot of comments that are made that are not factual, but it runs out of money a lot. It's one of the most used. People feel safe coming in to use our ATM as opposed to one out in a public setting. And so Intercam is talking amongst their leadership of getting it. They would love to get a second one. Banks make money off ATMs. It's a profit center for them. Okay, they'd love to put 20 in here. But the banking process, if any of you gone through it in Mexico, is a process. And just to get a part replaced when it was broken for several months, that was a major process just to get that part replaced. And so now they really want to bring in a second ATM, which will help the process. But now there's times where it's filled up in the morning, it's out by the afternoon. So it's more running out of money more often than it is breaking down. So, but they're a great sponsor. We love them dearly, as well as San Antonio Hospital and some of the other sponsors. Deanna handles all the sponsorships for the organization, so thank you for that, Deanna. Other questions? Anybody? No?
You know what, do you think that's good? You know, like when we first came down in 2007, you automatically joined LCS because that was the place to go to get information. Do you think that the new group of people that are coming down are relying more on social media, Facebook, Twitter, so on and so forth to get their information, which is not necessarily always correct, but they're using that?
Yes. Facebook is not an encyclopedia. So there's probably more false things that go on social media than accurate things, it seems sometimes. So, and Facebook, if you've been studying, you know, or reading these articles, international news-wise, Facebook is kind of, our generation were the ones that held on to it the longest. But there are lots of issues right now with Facebook, people getting cut off for unquestionable reasons, too difficult to get back on, a lot of pollution on there, and things like that. So there's the sense there's going to be a turning of the tide from Facebook. But yes, I think that social media, some people just are more comfortable staying at home and being by themselves. COVID has added to that too. But I think that we want to totally change our website. That's a major goal for in the coming months. And make it more user-friendly, make it more informative, talk about all the different things in the community that are going on, so people, that will be a focal point to find out what's happening in Lakeside. And as well as our point-of-sale system and some of the other things. So there's a lot of things in the work there, but yeah, social media is part of it, but it is what it is. So, other comments? Well, thank you all so very much for being and joining us today, being here, and please join us March 14th at the annual general meeting where we'll have lots to announce and lots of things going on. I think you'll be very impressed with the amount of things going on in our organization. That's what we're going to reveal. Thank you so much.